What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Raudeza Reviews. I'm Raudeza. Now, I really don't think I have to say this, and if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a huge Godzilla fan. In fact, and I've said this several times, it's probably one of the earliest memories that I have as a child, watching Saturday Sushi Cinema in San Jose, California. I mean, it's just like a block of Godzilla movies, the old school ones. So a couple months ago, when I saw the trailer for Godzilla Minus One, I was very intrigued. It hadn't been since Shin Godzilla that I was really excited for a new Godzilla feature. So the big question, of course, is Godzilla Minus One a great film or just a lame-ass attempt? Well, let's take a closer look. Now, before I start the review, I want to preface something. The last great Godzilla film for me was Shin Godzilla, and I think I mentioned that in the intro. And I do think that it's important to compare this film to its predecessor to sort of manage expectations to what audiences are about to be greeted to with Godzilla Minus One. Now, Shin Godzilla, by contrast, was a much larger film in terms of its overall scale, and a lot more anime-esque, and you can see the influences of a lot of manga and anime, particularly the universally acclaimed Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I personally love, although it somewhat confuses me at times. Shin Godzilla, in no subtle way, was also rife with political and satirical commentary about the inadequacies of the Japanese government. Basically, the film was an outright indictment of the Japanese bureaucracy and its inadequate response to the looming threat of the Daiichi nuclear power plant in Okuma, Fukushima. And for me personally, that was the real strength of the film. It was able to be political and satirical and at the same time entertaining as hell. By contrast, on the other hand, Godzilla Minus One is on a much smaller scale and a much more personal story, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, that's what made this movie that much more compelling for me. Godzilla Minus One actually takes place post-World War II, and again, this is really a reimagining of the original 1954 film. It has a lot of the same tone, and I think from a historical standpoint, it gets a lot of things right. Of course, I'm not going to give away spoilers, but in terms of its overall scale, this is a much more personal story and really follows the life of a failed kamikaze pilot. And if you know your history, you'll know that in the waning months of the Pacific theater of World War II, the Japanese resorted to kamikaze attacks on US naval vessels, which were basically suicide missions for these pilots, also known as the Divine Wind. And one of the great aspects of this movie is that you see the effects and ramifications and the post-traumatic stress and trauma of this very gruesome tactic in the last few remaining months of the Pacific Theater campaign. Now, if you've ever watched a movie like Independence Day, you'll know that what they tried to do there is have the interactions and personal stories set in the backdrop of an alien invasion. And it failed miserably because I didn't give a Frenchman's fart about any of those characters in either of the Independence Days. The opposite is true about Godzilla Minus One. I actually cared about this character because what they did was they had brilliant writing, great chemistry, and you got time, and they allowed you to kind of go through the disaster with these characters and everything that they were going through emotionally, and it paid off so well. I was actually more invested in these characters, and at times, whenever I was interacting with them, I thought to myself, oh shit, that's right, this is a Godzilla movie. That's how much I was emotionally invested in the characters, and I absolutely loved all of them. They were distinct, they had their own backstories, their own traumas, and they really made this film much more humanistic. Don't get me wrong though, this is still a Godzilla film. He is an omnipresent thing in this movie. They didn't try to pull what Legendary Pictures did by basically introducing Godzilla and then a minute later taking him off screen. I was really pissed off about that. This is a terrifying Godzilla. In fact, there's so many times where the scenes were so tense between the interactions and the humans and Godzilla. This Godzilla scared the piss out of me. Even though the humans get a lot more screen time, and again, their interactions are very interesting because they're so well written, there is an equal amount, or close to an equal amount of screen time for Godzilla, and when things go down, they freaking go down. Now, I do have to talk about a couple of missteps in the film, and mostly it had to do with the CGI. Now, the way that I can describe it is that it is predictably inconsistent. Let me explain. Now, the scenes with Godzilla can be really separated into two categories: the amphibious scenes and the scenes on land. Now, the ones in the water are absolutely freaking terrifying. The CGI is so well done there. There's a segment where he's actually following a little trolley, and not only is it incredibly tense, but it is scary as shit. I mean, I was absolutely terrified by this version of Godzilla. Then, of course, you have the scenes on land. Now, let me explain this because this has its own subcategory. So, For the scenes on land, when you have his head or his torso, his upper torso from the head up, it looks incredible, guys. And there's a scene that you see in this trailer where he's basically taking a bite out of a rail car. However, where the CGI drops, I mean, it's almost like looking like a drop in frame rate, is when you see his complete body and his overall biomechanics. It looks stiff and cheap, and it just didn't work at all. I don't know if it was just the movie theater that I was in, but it looked absolutely horrible, guys. And I just gotta be honest, the CGI in those segments looked atrocious. Fortunately, those aspects of the movie are far and few between, and regardless of whatever runtime you see those kind of really weird CGI moments, it doesn't detract from the overall experience. Because overall, the strength of this movie is the characters, the dialogue, the pacing, how well written it is, and most importantly, the overall story. I think this is a brilliant Godzilla movie and a great testament to its predecessor and building on what Toho wants to do in terms of exploring the myth and legend of Godzilla. Not only do I highly recommend this film, but I can't wait until it comes out on Blu-ray so I can see how this movie was made, what the inspiration was, and what they drew from. I just really love this film, guys, and I definitely recommend it. Though it is a shame that I watched it on a kind of shitty screen. I don't know what it is, but I think that watching it at home, like in 4K or something like that on a Blu-ray, it's probably just a better experience. I don't know, you guys tell me. This is a post-COVID world, and going to the movies is a little bit weird now, so I don't know. Anyways, I highly recommend this film. Godzilla Minus One is absolutely outstanding. Definitely go check it out, guys. Support Toho. This is a brilliant, brilliant film. Alright, everybody, so that's my official review on Godzilla Minus One. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next Rauteza Review.
その怪物は許しちゃくれない。
ゴジラマイナスワン。